and I feel privileged to know you and meet you. And you are my audience. What a privilege that is. So thank you very much. And I care about you, by the way. So, here's some notes. I'm going to talk about the power of surrender. And I got a bit nervous, so I wrote some notes. Surrender. We have to surrender if we want to get somewhere. So this speech, in this talk, I will explain something about my experience as a martial artist and how it led to me to this wonderful training simulation called the Samurai Game. I have zero experience as a manager. I have no statistics and I have no data. All I have is my personal experience and a little bit of common sense. So in this talk, I have to make a couple of definitions first. First of all, we're talking about surrender and leadership, right? So surrender can be thought of in different ways. Surrender to a god, for example. I don't want to go there. I'm going to talk a lot. Endless discussions there. Or waving the white flag. I'm in defeat. Yeah? No, I don't want to talk that. What I want to talk about is when we're in a team, when we're in a group, how we can surrender to each other. And in that context, we have to think of it as permissive surrender, giving permission. And the word leader can be thought of, or the leadership can be thought of, how a person leads. But I'd like you to consider it about how the group momentum leads itself, not to achieve one person's needs, but to achieve a win-win situation. So that's my context. So based on this context, here's a few words. Permissive surrender, that's what I call it. Permissive surrender. Permissive surrender is when you surrender as a leader, you give permission to your followers to be their own authority, which in turn gives them the power to surrender, thereby giving you permission to lead. That's a lot of words, even for me. So I produced also a diagram which says everything in those words. I call it the permission wheel. The leader becomes the follower becomes the leader. When you surrender, you give permission to the follower to lead, who can in turn surrender and give permission back to you to lead. Now, it's obvious, right? This is obvious and incredible at the same time. It's obvious because this is the natural dynamic of human relationships. Without this dynamic, relationships can't work. And it's incredible because when human beings know what is obvious, they don't carry it out unless it's part of their daily practice. So we need something to train us, to make it part of our daily practice. I like to think of it in terms of an acronym. Here's a funky acronym now. Seek heaven in new expansion. Shine. We can all shine. Shine to each other. When we shine to each other, we can form super teams. Now, to be a team, we have to recognize each other as collaborators. But to be a super team, we have to feel like we're part of a tribe. Now, there's a little experiment. If there's somebody near you that you don't really know, I'd like you to break the barrier and just shake hands with the person. Maybe you did it earlier today, we can do it again. If you can see somebody near you, somebody you don't really know, could you shake hands with that person? Okay, congratulations. This is how we used to do it before we met each other on Facebook. Now, we'll come back to this experiment a bit later. So, in fact, speaking of Facebook, there are problems. We heard about the modern day internet. And there are problems, of course, like the internet being a very useful source of information as it is, nevertheless has opened up a Pandora's box of security and privacy issues, even to the extent where presidential elections have been affected. So, what does that do to your trust? Trust is an important part of being a tribe. We're in a world of diversity. How can we cross tribes? It's easy to be a tribe in your own country, with your own people. We are crossing tribes. Our future is about crossing tribes. How can we find the trust when we cross? the borders. We need a training tool. We need to develop ourselves. Somebody said once, today's readers are tomorrow's leaders. It's not completely true. We need to develop other forms of intelligence than intellectual intelligence as well. We need to develop abilities to sense each other's limitations, physically and emotionally. We have to understand compassion and empathy. We have to understand what is the click between each of us. Where are the opportunities? When I walked through the door, I was looking for the click. I wanted to know what I'm connected to. We're not always connected to our country. There are other aspects that we are connected to. We have to look for that. And what's the collective intelligence in our community? What do we contribute as individuals to our community? And the cultural intelligence. We have to be able to adapt to cultural differences. And spiritual intelligence. We have to know that we're not the one and only authority, that we have to sometimes move our ego to the side. So these forms of intelligence have to be developed. And there are training tools, there are ways to develop these forms. In our school systems, they mainly address intellectual intelligence, right? I remember I was mainly busy with reading, and trying to improve my maths and so on. Intellectual intelligence is addressed at schools. Unfortunately, it just stops there. So we have to go further. If we don't go further, we're going to be severely handicapped for tomorrow's challenges to integrate. When I was at school, at the age of 9, I was a geek. I learned about computers and typing, quickly to program. And the computer world somehow, in some way, became my escape from society. I had good times and bad times, and here's the vulnerable part of this talk now. In the harder times, I was bullied. Who's been bullied at school before? Put up your hand. Okay, those who weren't bullied were either bullies, or you're a bunch of bloody angels here. In any case, I give it up to the ones who were bullied. I even give it up to the ones who bullied others. Because if you were bullied, or if you bullied others, nevertheless, you deserve love. That's what you should know. And the worst thing about being bullied or bullying is not that moment. It's later on in life and the effects it has on your relationships. I decided to leave school and leave the victim role behind me. I decided to develop myself. I worked as a software engineer, but in parallel, I became interested in the martial arts. I learned to spar, and I sparred with some very tough guys. I got my tooth knocked out, I got my ribs broken. I learned about surrender, but it wasn't permissive surrender. It was submissive surrender. This is not the kind of surrender I'm talking about. Although I developed myself, I was reaching somehow these forms of intelligence, but there was a missing magic ingredient. And it took a while until I looked to Japan and the beautiful martial art of Aikido before I understand what that missing magic ingredient was. So this martial art, Aikido, gave me a new perspective of martial arts. It wasn't about overcoming another person. It's about overcoming yourself. The founder of Aikido, his name was Warry. He said, when you bow deeply to the universe, it bows back. It really is the movement of the permission wheel, which I showed you. Leader becomes follower, follower becomes leader. But don't take my words for it.
It's a kind of magic. It's a kind of magic. A kind of magic. One dream, one soul, one prize, one golden glance of what should be. It's a kind of magic. One shaft of light that shows the way. No mortal man
I'm really thankful for Aikido for bringing me so many friends and great teachers from all over the world. And that gave me also the feeling of being like a global tribe. So there we have people from all over the world, my global tribe of Aikido. And the missing magic ingredient was that permissive surrender that I didn't find in the overcoming martial arts. But I didn't understand what it meant for a team, for a group, until I came to the samurai game. Samurai game came into my life. Now, samurai game it's a training simulation invented by the late George Leonard, who was a writer, an Aikido teacher, and modern thinker. And his idea was to bring people from their mundane, everyday 9-to-5 lives and put them into a more vivid reality. So he did this with this simulation. He brought people into a samurai role. We role-played samurai. And the samurai game is simply a battle between two armies. There's no physical sparring. There's no physical contact. The battles are spontaneous, unpredictable battles, but safe, between opponents. There's a competition element. The competition is not there for a winner. It's there for a win-win situation. It's there for you to observe how you act in competition. Now, Leonard devised some concepts of ancient Japanese cultural ideas, put them into the samurai game to role-play. For example, the virtues of Bushido. So the virtues of Bushido, such as courage and honor, integrity, respect, loyalty. These virtues go into the game, you role-play these virtues. And at the same time, you try to live in the moment, very moment now. And we do it with the concept of Ichigo Ichi-e. By Ichigo Ichi-e, we mean one encounter in one lifetime. In other words, we've got one chance to make it count. One chance in our lives, in our families, at work, in our relationships. In this very moment now, we have one chance. Are we seizing the opportunity, or are we letting it slip by? To help seize this opportunity, George Leonard developed an exercise called grace. So when we get stressed, we lose those opportunities. So grace puts us into the ground again. It's grounding, relaxation, awareness, centering, and energizing. Let's all practice grace. Let's all stand up. We're all going to practice grace. So let's go into the ground. The first thing, notice the center of gravity and just drive your body weight into the ground and feel it into your feet. Feel the ground, grounding. Relaxation. Easiest way to relax is just lift the shoulders and let them go. Relax the shoulders. Relax the muscles in your face, your neck. Relaxation. Maybe just swing the body a little bit left and right to find a relaxation there. Maybe you want to half close the eyes. Awareness. Notice how your spine is in space. Is it to one side or the other? Is one shoulder higher than the other? Where is your weight? So really be aware of your body in space and the senses of your body. Try to be receptive. Centering. Where is your center? Somebody said it's here. Your heart center is here. Your center is 2 centimeters underneath your navel. You feel that buoyancy? That's your center of gravity. You've got to be aware of that. You've got to use that. You've got to respond with your center and not with your emotions when you want to seize the opportunities. Feel your center, engage it, embody it. And energize. We're going to energize now. Breathe in. Energize is with oxygen. It gives vitality to your body. Breathe out. Feel your center going more down into the ground. Let's do that 2 more times. Breathe in. Breathe out. And 1 more time. We haven't got half an hour to do this, unfortunately, but you get the idea. Maybe just shake hands with the person you just shook hands with before. Maybe the same person. Thank you, and you can sit down. Now, compare This is part of the experiment. Compare the time you just shook hands now with the time you shook hands in the beginning. Did you feel a difference in the grip? Maybe a more closeness, more engagement? The point being, I propose, that grace puts us in a state where we can break down barriers. We can cross borders. We can enter that diversity in teams and make super teams. We can become great leaders. This is the missing magic ingredient applied to teams. So, what I heard from people were some amazing things about the samurai game. This is some of the things that they said. I felt cared for and cared towards others. I felt appreciated for my strengths and not rejected for my weaknesses. I felt honored. I felt energized and motivated. I felt enriched by seeing so many different perspectives. I am more clear about the decisions I make in my life. Now, wouldn't that be great? If all teams could have those qualities. This is what we're trying to reach. This is our challenge for tomorrow. A good friend of mine, his name is John King. He's going to smile when he hears this. He's a great leadership trainer, by the way. We're doing a retreat in Bali this September if you're interested. I'm not selling that right now. I'm giving this Power of Surrender talk. We sat down in the seaside town of Varna, Bulgaria, whiling away, talking about life. And then suddenly he said, Lawrence, there are so many cultural heroes out there, but they're not people at the top of a hierarchy. They're everyday people like me and you who touch the lives of others with extraordinary acts. And listen, we can all be extraordinary. We're all special, but we can be extraordinary. What does it take us to be extraordinary? I leave that question to you. You have to decide, what does it take you to touch the hearts of others? In addition to this time, I traveled to Israel. I traveled and I met Israelis and I met Palestinians, and my heart was touched by so many cultural heroes. Small cultural heroes, big cultural heroes. Israelis and Palestinians, we trained for peace. We entered events for Buddha for Peace, Aikido Without Borders by Miles Kessler. These were great events for bringing Israelis and Palestinians together. I made so many friends on both sides, and they are the cultural heroes I'm talking about. What I observed, without any experience as a manager, as a corporate leader, with zero statistics, zero data, I can say from the bottom of my heart, this is real leadership. This is great leadership. And it's based on the power of surrender. Now, to conclude, what I'm suggesting is we need to make the power of surrender our daily practice. It's obvious, but it has to be in our daily practice. Otherwise, we're just going to look at it like we're looking at the TV. I'm from a different place than you are. You're from somewhere, I'm from somewhere. But we have many things in common. And one of those things in common that we have is that we share the same tomorrow. And probably we also have the same challenges. Thank you.